let's see, I had an example here I thought that was pretty good that kind of speaks to, again, that what I was saying during the project walkthrough, this idea of coding mobile first. So here you can see like they have this site, and basically it has a mobile layout because the items are stacked one on top of each other, and they have the meta tag that basically declares the viewport, the width is equal to the device width, initial scale 1.0. So it's pretty standard when it comes to like writing a responsive website, is you put this meta tag up at the top with these properties. And then you can see all of the code that they have is mobile first. So it's all applying to the mobile layout first. And you can see there's a lot of code. And then finally, they have this media query at media only and min width 768, so that when the browser is at a minimum or at least 768 pixels, then they apply this next set of CSS rules. And kind of what you notice is that a lot of the work is done to get the mobile layout to look right. And then later, as you're building up, you don't have to write as much CSS to get it to look good on larger devices. So that's like another benefit to drive home about writing mobile first, is that if you do a lot of the work first up front to get it to look good on mobile, then you set your media queries as you're going up in higher in device size, device width, and then it looks good. Like there isn't really much you have to do later on in order to get it to look good on the larger devices. Whereas, and I don't have a good example to demonstrate it, whereas if you were to do from desktop to mobile using like max media queries, it ends up being a lot more work trying to get it to go from larger down to smaller. So right after finishing mobile style sheets, so just reading a chat comment, desktop variant was like 1 or 2 lines and done. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so as you're going about writing your blog, a lot of the work is going to be done on the mobile view, and then adding 1 or 2 media queries, and you're basically, so I'll send this in the chat. And here they're using, not a very good demonstration of Flexbox or Grid. They're using this kind of old ClearFix hack it's called. So this is what basically developers used to do before there was Flexbox and Grid. They would have like this content, which is an empty string, and then they'd say clear both and display table. And I won't get into it now, but like, so I probably won't explain it very well, but like basically.
That's when you use it, when you try to use float, I think, right, too?
Right, so like, what that lady Rachel Andrew gets at in her article is that when you use float, you're basically collapsing the flow of the document, and so that ruins the structure or the integrity of the document. So you have to do like these weird kind of like things using this like after pseudo element to kind of like almost like put like what would you call it, like a frame back into the site or give it back its structure. So I'll see if I can find something that kind of gets into that, because I don't really have much more to demonstrate besides that. But let me send this link, and you have the other viewport link, advanced layout. And what I was hoping to do is like for the remainder of the time is just to get some more practice using Flexbox and Grid, because I think the more time we spend practicing, the more these concepts will become clearer. Okay.
Since you mentioned Grid and the Udacity course, the instructor set 3 columns, but named 8 when naming the grid areas. Is that usual? Is that common, or was it just a mistake because it was really misleading seeing that.
Yeah, there's stuff like that, like kind of sprinkled throughout the course. Like quality control isn't always the best when it comes to like these courses, but I guess if you spot stuff like that, I would, usually they're always asking like for feedback, so I would kind of send it back to them and just be like, hey, that was very confusing and caused me to get stuck for an hour or whatever.
Okay, but it's not a common practice. That was basically the question I was asking. So it's not right.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but it sounded like he was talking about an example that didn't in the video he was talking about something that didn't match up with the code that they were giving you.
Basically, he set 3 columns, and when he was naming the grid areas, you put the names of the areas in the string. He put 8 columns into the name.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm still not exactly sure. I mean, when you name
Not
the
common practice,
yeah, because
Okay.
right?
like when you name the template area and then you give the children the grid area, usually it's the same name as what you name it in the template.
So I'm
Oh.
just typing the code in there into the chat. Maybe it's thankfully he typed something like that.
Oh, repeat 3.
Basically. So repeat 1 FR is understandable, 3 columns, but
Yeah.
then when naming the grid areas, he put 8 of them inside there. So basically naming 8 columns, and that was just confusing. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of funny that he's using grid template column with grid template areas. But we'll go through a few grid examples. Yeah, because like the repeat is basically you're repeating 3 columns at 1 fraction each. Yeah, so for there to be like 5 HR, what it'll end up just doing is just keep repeating this like 3 fraction pattern. So like 1 fraction, 1 fraction, 1 fraction, and then the next. With grid, the browser like implicitly does these calculations where it'll just keep repeating that pattern like every 3 columns.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So yeah, so I was hoping is everybody could pull up like a CodePen and we could just go through some examples and short questions will come up along the way. So inside the CodePen, we'll have like a parent container and we'll give it a class of container. And it's probably going to keep asking me to save along the way. And then we'll have some divs inside of it. One, two, three, four, five. Save it just to get it to. And each one of these will have a class. And they'll each have a class of D, and then like they'll have their own unique class that we can apply like a child style to. All right. And then in the CSS, we'll have this container class. And then we'll have, we'll give each div its own color. So we'll say like background. Oh, and we'll just like put some content inside. And so for D2, D2. Salmon. And for D3, see pale. Coils. And for D4, we'll say like pink. And inside here, we will set the font size to 40 pixels, a little bit bigger. X out the console here. And the container. Oops. Percent. All right. Everyone familiar with CodePen? Have that set up. Okay, so we'll start with Flexbox, and then we'll move into using grid. So how would I make this container a Flexbox?
You display flex on the container.
Display flex. So notice like once you say display flex, it immediately just turns the container into a flex box, and already by default, I didn't say flex direction. I didn't give it a direction. I didn't say column or row, which is like the next property that we can do. But by default, like, we didn't even have to declare explicitly that it should be a row. So that's something to keep in mind, because Flexbox and Grid do that a lot, is that they do calculations for us. And it's part of what makes them responsive frameworks, is that without knowing the data that's going to be coming in and out of the application, the layout has this ability to respond and be flexible with the data that the application has. And why that's important is because, and I mentioned it to Jack's group, because it was, the question always comes up, like, why do we use this, or why would we want to use this? And a major reason is because you'll learn about, during like the web API section, you'll learn about requesting data from like third-party applications. And the data that you get back, you don't always know if that data is going to be like 1,000 pieces of information in a list or 10 pieces of information. And the problem that it can cause there is that, let's say you make a request for data and you get back, 1,000 pieces of data, that potentially could break your layout if you don't have it set up to handle that kind of amount of incoming information. So it was always a pain prior to Flexbox and Grid to know like how the layout should respond. And a lot of times it was just done with JavaScript. So yeah,